my final speech YouTube submission. Minimum wage hasn't been increased in any way in over a decade, with the last change being in July 24, 2009. The hard work that people who work minimum wage put into their jobs every day with the pay they get is criminal, especially those who are unable to get a degree and their only option is to provide for their family and minimum wage. Job and minimum wage jobs because it's the only place that will hire them due to the background. The current average being $7.25 an hour, making that a total cost of $15,000 a year, which is not even enough to afford basic living expenses, nonetheless the healthy and stable lifestyle. Not able to afford proper housing, building expenses, clothes, and any other hygiene items needed to make it throughout a year. The fact is that income provided by the state is nowhere near enough financial stability needed to maintain an above poverty line lifestyle. The average amount of single adult male spends this year on food is around $4,400 a year, which is already a third of the yearly amount cut off. If someone like a single mother is trying to feed herself and multiple children, the amount would overweigh how much she earns significantly. Situations like this are what cause poverty and to lead some to partake in illegal activities, because it makes them feel as if their only way out is from under the blanket of poverty. The minimum wage of today's workforce prevents those who work and to have any type of enjoyable lifestyle whilst doing so, such as family outings, vacations, and or being able to fully celebrate holidays. This is because just to make the amount of $15,000 a year, you would have to work 77 days. You would have to work 7 days a week, full hours, which doesn't allow you to have any time or not allow you to financially stable enough to do things such as vacations and holidays. Often what people don't understand about the lower class countries is that not only are they in a certain tax bracket, but they're together in a certain lifestyle, especially because of the most part working the small minimum wage jobs that which they are. For example, when a community is all in poverty, it is difficult for them to rise up, especially when considering factors such as low amounts of payment and drawn out retainers on homes, apartments. People like this are allowed to leave their poverty because not only do they not have the tools, but they have no voice. So their stories are never heard. The CNBC Records page has given people a platform of minimum wage and poverty level individuals to voice their situations and how minimum wage has affected their quality of living. For example, in Kansas City, there's a single mother of 6 named Aglesia Nicholson. Her life has become a living hell because of the shockingly low salary her cashier job at Church's Chicken provides her with, which would be only $8.60 an hour, which actually is 1.25 above the federal minimum wage due to recent state changes. Nonetheless, the small increase is simply not enough for Aglesia to maintain her lifestyle and provide for her family, one of which has a medical problem and has been listed over 7 visits over the years in 1 year to the hospital, which has left her with hospital bills that are burying her. Nicholson is currently homeless, living with her mother, and claims despite the small increase in wages, it is simply not enough to get by. She describes it as a feeling of impossible escape to salvation, never being able to see at the end of the tunnel. It just goes to show why those below the poverty level revert to crime so often. I mean, why wouldn't they? What they need to survive, get what they need to survive. In her own words, she even says, "You can be doing everything right, and still, it's not enough." She says it's a constant struggle every day. The journey through minimum wage is a never-ending roller coaster that which involves the constant setbacks and disappointments of the involved party. Nicholson still has not escaped the poverty of minimum wage and is still fighting and pushing with her own Church's Chicken organization to up the wage. The idea that families who are under the poverty level and yet still are being paid the same as teenagers who are 16 and in no way need the same amount of money as someone like Delisha, a single mother. And especially money on the same level as someone who just needs it for a car to fill up their tank. The focus of increasing wages should be focused on increasing the wage of an at-risk and high risk workers, like those single mothers who desperately need the money to simply provide. I know what many of you think, that if the company provides more minimum wage, their earnings would go down, when in reality, according to labradorhouse.gov, raising the minimum wage actually increases consumer spendings and boosts the economy. A study by Doug Hall and David Cooper estimated that a $2.55 increase the minimum wage increased the earnings of the low-wage workers by $40 billion and result in a significant increase in GDP and employment. My point being that a family, especially those of poverty and single-parent households, incomes are to be working minimum wage jobs, they should be allowed to apply for some sort of increase in wage that the government could pay for. Just like how food stamps system works for those in poverty of large families. If you were to reach the criteria of the family with one of these household incomes, you should be eligible to make more than some 16-year-old in order to provide for your family better. It would not only be a significant blow on funds for the government, it would not be a significant blow on funds for the government. They would already be getting more money from the workforce that would be applying from the poverty level family, inclusive work pay packages. Demand for jobs highly increase within the U.S., especially for the minimum wage. It could help many form participating in otherwise illegal activity instead of possibly making a more handsome, honest living from an increased salary provided by the government in order to better serve at-risk families. The whole point of this idea would be to actively combat constant growing poverty within the U.S. The minimum wage of today's world in America is one of the possible major downfalls of our country, which honestly has been an issue with our country's history of being greedy with wealth. Those of wealth have always held onto their riches instead of spreading it onto the community that desperately needs it. Today's world that being of the government coming up with every excuse not to pay those in poverty for fair minimum wage salaries instead of paying them chicken scratch. The way our poverty line will begin to fade out is through the increase of our country's minimum wage.